I know I'm pretty damn good. I have been. Going to continue to improve year to year, day to day. I'm focused on continued improvement, and I'm really happy with the offseason that I have. I'm really happy to have this training camp to continue to hone my skills and improve and build this team chemistry for this run we're about to go on.
The Cincinnati Bengals are one of the more interesting teams in the NFL in 2024, and a big reason for that is the variance of how well this team could perform next season. If everything goes relatively right and Joe Burrow is healthy for 17 games, it's hard not to see the Bengals being a real contender in the AFC and having a good shot to make it all the way back to the Super Bowl. But if what happened last year happens again this year and Joe Burrow continues to deal with multiple injuries, the Bengals again could find themselves out of the playoff mix for the second straight season. And I think that shows how integral Joe Burrow is to the success of the Cincinnati Bengals, and a big reason why the organization continued to go out and get offensive line help and some more weaponry for Burrow so he can stay upright and be healthy for every single game next year. It's been a pretty up and down journey for Burrow since he's entered the NFL. His rookie season, he started a little bit slow, but then started to heat up before he tore his ACL, his MCL, and PCL against the Washington Commanders. He came back the very next season and might have had the best year of his career, leading the Bengals all the way to the Super Bowl and really emerging as a second-year player. You go to 2022 and he missed a lot of preseason and training camp due to having to get his appendix removed. So again, that was another season where he started pretty slow, but then really heated up towards the end of the year. Got the Bengals back to another AFC Championship game where they did fall to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then again, this past year in training camp, he suffered a left calf strain. He started the year very slow. Again, you could definitely tell he was not healthy at all. He was not playing super well. I would say really started looking like Burrow in week number 5 against the Arizona Cardinals. But then just 5 weeks later against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football, he would tear a ligament in his wrist in the second quarter and miss the rest of the season. And shortly after that injury happened, there was a lot of speculation of how severe this injury could end up being, if Burrow was ever truly going to be able to get back to 100%, and what this could potentially mean for him going forward. Burrow even said himself, whenever the injuries start to stack up, your football mortality kind of comes into the back of your head. So that's definitely something that I've thought about and something I've had to fight through. He continued to say, you always forget how hard it is coming back from an injury. That's every time it happens. There's always peaks where you're like, I'm feeling great, and then a couple of months later you have a couple of days where it's like, man, I'm not feeling that great. In the past, I pushed through that and have caused problems for myself, and this year I'm not doing that. But as time has progressed and we've seen Burrow in practice, I think a lot of those concerns have been eased, and that is the reason I wanted to make this video, because I've been seeing so many clips of Burrow just diming up his wide receivers down the field in training camp, and honestly it's just been really good to see Burrow spin the ball, because we have not been able to see it for a long time now. And due to Jamar Chase's contract situation, he has been sitting out of training camp, so we have not seen the Burrow to Chase connection. And honestly, I'm not too concerned with that. I mean, they go all the way back to their LSU days. So I think Chase could step on the field for probably 10 minutes and their chemistry and timing would be right back to where it's always been. And in the meantime, Chase is basically acting as another coach on the field. Bengals assistant Troy Walters said even though he's not practicing, he's been engaged. He's asking questions. He's helping the young guys. He's been great. And he went on to say he's staying sharp mentally. So when he does come back, I don't think he's going to skip a beat. But I think for the rest of the wide receivers and even new tight end who they signed in Mike Gesicki, this time is pretty valuable. As I've stated with Burrow the past 2 years, he really hasn't had a true training camp due to these different injuries that he's had. So being able to build some chemistry with new rookie wide receiver Jermaine Burton and some other young guys like Charlie Jones and Andre Yoshivash, these are very important reps, especially when you consider that Tyler Boyd did leave in free agency. The Bengals do need a new wide receiver 3. And from all the clips and reports that I've seen, it seems like Andre Yoshivash might be the front runner right now. One thing that did surprise me a little bit is that T. Higgins is not holding in. He's not sitting out of practice at all either. So we've seen the classic jump balls of Burrow to Higgins or even the back shoulder fades. And personally, my thoughts on T. Higgins is I do think this is going to be his last year in a Bengals uniform. It does suck because he is one of the fan favorites. I mean, every time he catches a pass, the fans just yell T. Even in practice, I mean, it's pretty hysterical. But with Joe Burrow's massive contract that he signed last offseason and Jamar Chase's future contract, which I do think is a slam dunk to happen, Bengals owner Mike Brown did say it's not so likely that this is a good time to negotiate. The offseason is a better time for that, and we're going to try and keep focused on the football part. I'm not going to rule out anything, but I will tell you that the die has probably been cast. He did continue and say, we're going to bend over backwards to make it happen. I can't tell you when it's going to get done. But when his contract inevitably does get signed, I just don't see how the Bengals have an extra $20+ million a season to pay T. Higgins, who's definitely going to be commanding that. I just don't think it's realistic to pay 2 wide receivers $20+ million while you're paying your quarterback $45+ million a season. So I kind of view this season as the last dance for the trio of Burrow, Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, which is definitely unfortunate. But back to practice, a concern that Joe Burrow had late in minicamp and early in training camp was his deep ball. It was fading on him a little bit. He was not being as accurate as he wanted to be down the field. But I think that issue has been completely solved because we saw a couple of throws and practice yesterday that were absolutely insane. One was deep to Trent Irwin. He stepped up in the pocket and delivered an absolute dime right of the outstretched arm of Josh Newton, the 5th round rookie cornerback that they drafted from TCU. And the second clip that I want to show is probably the best though that I've seen so far in training camp. He evaded the pass rush, got outside the pocket, rolling to his right, lofted an absolute piss missile 50 yards down the field to Shedrick Jackson right to his chest plate. Jackson didn't have to break stride at all. It was not behind him. I mean, it was perfectly placed. And that throw single-handedly just evaporated any doubt that I had that Burrow is still recovering from that wrist injury. So with just over a month to go before the start of the regular season, Burrow is fully healthy and might be even performing in some preseason games in the coming weeks. The big key now, and really the only thing that matters for the Cincinnati Bengals this season, is keeping him upright and making sure he does not suffer any injury or even a setback before the year begins. The Bengals made 2 huge additions to their offensive line this year. They brought in Trent Brown from the New England Patriots on a contract to be a plug-and-play starter at right tackle. He's another massive human at 6'8", over 380 pounds to pair alongside Orlando Brown, who's another huge human. Brown is somebody when he's healthy and focused, he's a really good player. The issue though is he does get banged up a lot, and the Bengals already placed him on the active non-injury list. But in case of emergency, the Bengals also spent their 1st round pick on another tackle and Amarius Mims from Georgia. And guess what? He's another 6'8", over 340 pound offensive tackle. I think the Bengals might be the only team in the league to have 3 absolute mammoths at the tackle position. But I did like Mims as a prospect. He has a very high ceiling. So hopefully one of those guys can be a productive player at right tackle this season. I think outside of that position, which is an unknown at this point, the rest of the offensive line is more than solid. The interior, you have 3 veterans in Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and Cordell Volson. And then I mentioned Orlando Brown Jr., who the Bengals gave an absolute bag just last offseason. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the Bengals offensive line will be able to hold up and give Burrow some good protection. But I will say a lot of the hits or sacks that Burrow has taken, he's come out multiple times and taken a lot of accountability for some of those. He likes to hold on to the ball till the very last second, and sometimes that results in him taking a big shot. I think that is something that this season and the rest of his career that really needs to be coached out of him a little bit. It's fine to throw the ball away or just go down and live to see another day. We saw it time and time again with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, and that's a big reason why those Hall of Fame quarterbacks were able to maintain and stay healthy into their late 30s and even into their 40s with Tom Brady. So I think if you're Burrow, you try and be a little bit more mindful about that and get the ball out quick to your playmakers, because you have some of the best in the league in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and etc. In terms of team performance for the Bengals this year, I do think the schedule is fairly easy. It's always going to have a degree of difficultness because of the AFC North. Just having to play against the Cleveland Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens twice a year each is just not going to be easy. But because they finished in 4th place last year, that means they get to play a handful of 4th place teams. The New England Patriots to open up the season, the Washington Commanders, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants. Those are 4 of the first 6 games of the Bengals schedule next year. And I do think that's the NFL schedule makers giving Burrow and the Bengals an easy start to the season to really ramp up and get going for the end of the year. So if Burrow can stay healthy, I feel pretty confident in predicting the Bengals to be my AFC North winner next year. The only 2 years that Burrow has remained healthy in his career, the Bengals won the division, and I expect that trend to continue if they can just keep their star quarterback healthy. But I want to know what you think about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and what you expect from them in 2024. Do you think Burrow can bounce back and have the best season of his career, or do you still have some concerns about his wrist injury and what he can accomplish next season? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.